Hello and welcome to this lecture for Introduction to Philosophy. This week we're going to look at philosophy and mindfulness. And philosophy and mindfulness have a long sort of history. Of course, mindfulness comes out of Buddhist traditions, Eastern philosophical traditions, and it's been adopted in the West as a technique, as a kind of therapeutic technique in recent decades. So we're going to talk about that in this lecture, and we're going to explore what mindfulness is, the way that it works. And subsequently, we're going to sort of dig deeper into the Buddhist philosophy and think about, we're going to think about some of the sort of underlying ideas and themes and impulses in Buddhist philosophy that sort of find their way into mindfulness. So here we're going to think about more the value of mindfulness as a therapeutic technique, and it's been used in a lot of settings to deal with things like stress and pain, other sort of issues that people have functioning, sort of mental issues that are sort of make it impossible for us to function properly. So mindfulness has been used to sort of to do therapeutic work on a lot of the problems that we face, and it has a record of success in sort of tackling those problems, in producing, in getting results that seem to be productive and that make a difference. So we're going to be using Jon Kabat-Zinn's work to understand mindfulness and its relation to meditation. He's one of the foremost authors on mindfulness. He runs the Mindfulness Stress Reduction Clinic in New England, and that's been running for a number of years now, and has been very, very successful. So let's dig in and see if we can see what we can find out. Okay, so as I mentioned, the idea of mindfulness emerged out of Buddhist philosophy and out of the traditions of Buddhist philosophy, which developed over thousands of years. And it's become a widely used therapeutic technique in Western societies. So we're going to explore, excuse me, the role of mindfulness, the idea of mindfulness, and its deeper roots in Buddhist philosophy. Let's start with Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness. He defines mindfulness like this: it's paying attention to something in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So if we break that down and just take the sort of component elements, paying attention to something, but paying attention in a particular way. So our attention is directed in a particular way with a particular focus. There's a curiosity about our attention. There's a kindness about our attention. It's not severe. It's not judging. So we pay attention on purpose. So it's deliberate. It's a deliberate attempt to attend to something. And we pay attention in the present moment. So it's always related to present experience. So what we're trying to pay attention to is the present moment, how it feels, and how it resonates with us. And we're trying to do that non-judgmentally. So we're not bringing in judgments like this is good, this is bad, wouldn't it be better if something else were the case? We just try to experience the present moment and pay attention to what's there. So that's the basic idea of mindfulness. Now, to make sense of this, it helps to grasp this idea of doing versus being. So most of our time, nearly all of our time, I would say, we're in a kind of doing mode. So our sort of relation to the world is one in which we're going about in a mode of doing. And typical of the doing attitude is that we're exercising critical thinking. We're trying to figure out how to get to some place, how to get to something, and using our thinking to figure out how to get there. We're problem solving. We're trying to figure out, again, how do we solve this issue of how do we get this? How do we attain that? How do we reach this point? And we've got to solve problems along the way to make that happen. So we're problem solving. We're looking at the situation and looking for solutions. And of course, it's goal directed. When we're doing, we're working towards something. We're looking towards a goal. We're trying to achieve something. So what we're doing is directed towards that focus. Now, if we compare that with the idea of being, and in being, we're bringing an attitude that is one of acceptance, non-judgmentality, and it's not goal-directed, it's focused on present experience. So the idea here is that the doing mode, which again is where we spend the vast majority of our lives, the doing mode narrows our attention to elements relative to the goal or focus. So we become, what we see in the situation depends on what our goal is, what our focus is. And we're problem solving in order to achieve that goal. In being, we're not trying to achieve something, we're just focused on our present experience and what it feels like. So if we can adopt a kind of being attitude, we might be able to become aware of our automatic thought patterns. Things which we ordinarily take for granted, the ways of thinking, the habits of reacting to things that we get into. If we're in being, we might catch those things, right? But if we're in doing, we're so bound up in our goals and what we're trying to do that it's impossible to sort of see the thought patterns that we get engaged in. So we want to think of mindfulness and meditation as taking place in a being mode. We're just trying to accept, focus on present experience, not judging, instead of trying to get to somewhere, instead of trying to look at our experience through the lens of what we want or the goal that we're after. We're just focusing on what's there. So that's the sort of framework in which we want to think about mindfulness. So when we're paying attention to the breath, of course, this is a major focus of a lot of types of meditation. The goal is just to listen and pay attention to your breathing. So we're not trying to change the breathing or force it. It's just to listen and pay attention. So try to adopt an attitude of curiosity towards your breath. Where do you feel it? Do you feel it in the pit of your stomach? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your nostrils? And what does it feel like? What does it feel like when it comes in? What does it feel like when you exhale and it goes out? So pay attention and adopt an attitude of curiosity to breathing. Remember, you're not trying to think about breathing. You're trying to feel the sensations associated with it. You're trying to attune to the practice of breathing and to feel those sensations. So it's that sense of being attuned to what's happening. We're not trying to think about what's happening. We're not getting into a thought process. We're trying to attune and feel what's there. So an interesting thing to do is to try tuning into your breathing throughout the day. At particular points, maybe when you're on the subway, maybe before class starts, you have a couple of moments. Try to tune into your breathing, and what do you notice? What do you notice about your breathing? And what are the thoughts? What do you notice about your thoughts and emotions in these moments? What does it feel like? What's going through your mind? Are you nervous? Do you feel your heart beating? Are you lethargic? Is it a time of day when you're sort of lethargic, when you sort of don't have a lot of energy? What does that feel like? So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts and emotions? How does it feel at this particular moment? Okay, so let's talk about Kabat-Zinn's 7 foundations of mindfulness. And these are 7 key attitudes that we can adopt that sort of allow you to adopt the practice of mindfulness and do it in a way that's likely to make a difference and likely to sort of be productive in your life. So these are 7 things that are really important for doing the practice well. So the first one, as we've talked about, is non-judging. The idea here is trying not to get caught up in your ideas and opinions, likes and dislikes, and our automatic judgments about things. This is good, this is bad, this is a problem. We want to try not to judge, but just to be aware of things as they are, just to see things as they are without making judgments about them, without that following moment when we say, this is good, this is bad. We want to adopt that attitude of curiosity about things. So what does it feel like? Right? How does it feel to us? How does it feel in the stomach? How does it feel in the chest? Those are the questions we want to ask, and to sort of adopt an attitude of curiosity. The second theme is patience. And this is about letting things emerge in their own time and not trying to force things. So we can think of it, as Kabat-Zinn points out, as a form of wisdom, that we're accepting that things must emerge in their own time and we can't force them. Right? We can't force an insight when it's not ready to emerge, when we sort of haven't done the work of preparing it and preparing ourselves to accept it. So patience is key. And if we meditate and it doesn't happen as we like, or it's not moving, things are not sort of progressing as we want, we've got to remember the idea of patience. Letting things emerge in their own time is key. Very important part is this idea, number 3, the beginner's mind. And the beginner's mind is all about being receptive to new possibilities and being open to present moment experience. So we want to try to experience things as we're experiencing them for the first time. That's the key idea with the beginner's mind, because we get into habits of sort of thinking, oh, this is the same thing, this happened before, so it's going to happen the same way, right? And so we close off our expectations about things. So with a beginner's mind, we want to let go of our expectations, our preconceptions. We want to let go of our sense that we know what this is going to be, how this is going to feel, and we want to open ourselves up to new possibilities. So being receptive, being receptive to things as they emerge, being receptive to the fact that this thing is not like other things, and just being open to how it feels and letting go of our preconceptions that things are always going to be a certain way, that we know how things are going to work. So the beginner's mind is a really, really important attitude to try to cultivate. So number 4 is trust. And the idea here is trusting your feelings. You are the ultimate authority in what works and what doesn't. So trust what you feel and how you're going about the practice, and remember, your feelings are the most important things here. To trust in them and to work with them, and to trust yourself about the experience that you're having. Number 5 is non-striving. And like non-doing, there's no other goal than being yourself. So don't try to set goals and expectations about how you will feel. So we're not trying to strive to get somewhere. It's simply paying attention to whatever is happening. And as Kabat-Zinn points out, this isn't the same thing as being passive, right? So in non-doing and non-striving, we're not being passive. Right, we're trying to cultivate that sense in which we can listen, in which we can pay attention to what's happening. And as you develop a meditation practice, you realize that takes work. It takes attention, right? And attention is something that we have to work at. So it's something that requires our energy, requires our investment in order to do successfully. It's very different to the way that we go about setting goals and expectations. Here the goal is not to strive, but simply to pay attention. And number 6 is acceptance, or accepting things as they actually are in the present. So we don't want to force situations to be the way you want them to be. Accept that things are as the way they are, and that's the only place from which we can move forward. So any kind of change requires that we accept things as they genuinely are in the present. And once we've accepted things, we're open to new possibilities. So as Michael J. Fox said, acceptance doesn't mean resignation, It means understanding that something is what it is and that there's got to be a way through it. So we accept the present, accept the way it is, and accept that we're going to try and find a way through it. So we can't force it to be different, but in acceptance, we'll find ways of getting through, we'll find paths, and that's the key idea. And finally, number 7 is letting go. And the idea here is that our mind has a tendency to grasp at things and push them away. So we're always trying to bring things close that we think are positive and good, push things away that we think are negative and bad. And it's something that, again, becomes automatic over time, of hanging on to things, grasping at things and pushing other things away. So the story about the monkey and the coconut. Apparently, a very good way to catch a monkey in the forest is to put a banana in a coconut, close it up and make a little hole that's big enough for the monkey's hand or fist to get in, but it's not big enough for the monkey to take out what's inside with its fist closed. So if the monkey gets his hand in the coconut and doesn't let go, right, then the hunter's going to come along and he's going to trap the monkey. So monkeys find it very difficult to let go of the treasure that's in the coconut, and will sort of hang on and even sort of risk capture because they cannot let go. So that's a nice way of thinking about our tendency to hold on, to cling to things. We have to be aware of our mind's tendency to grasp, and the way sometimes we need to let go of that tendency, sort of grasp and push away and just let things be as they are. So if you try meditation, it's good to find a time that works for you. Find a time when you're not super tired or groggy, and try to start with an open mind. I'm not sure how this will work, but I'm going to try and see how it goes. So that's a nice attitude to approach. And you can start with a small sort of time frame, a minute, 5 minutes, and you can sort of increase that time if it works. But remember, you're not trying to feel a certain way. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're just listening to what's there and sitting with your experience and getting to know your experience in the present at that particular moment. Okay, so to sum up this week, we've seen that mindfulness is a powerful way of connecting with our inner experience. It's not about thinking, it's about attuning to the way that we feel, to the way our body is, and to what is happening with us in the present. Many people have found a lot of therapeutic power in this idea and this way of being, that it helps them deal with things like stress, it helps them deal with pain, and they found a lot of success in using this as a therapeutic technique. It's rooted in the substance of ancient Buddhist philosophy, and we're going to talk about that and talk about this connection in subsequent weeks.